Okay, guys, so today we are going to talk about coherence. We have already talked about cohesion through the use of cohesive devices. We are not leaving cohesion behind. We would be looking at cohesion along with coherence in the text that we are going to do. But today we are going to practice more about coherence. Okay, how is coherence attained in a text, and if coherence is not there in a text, so what is the stylistic significance of such a text? Because of course the author has intentionally used a loose kind of coherence within a text or within his writing. So we are going to try to find out if that is so, what might be the reason, or what might be the stylistic significance, what goals of writing he wants to achieve through loose coherence. Okay, because since we are practicing coherence stylistically, so we would be looking at text uh, that lack coherence basically. Okay, so that we can find out the genre. We can talk about the genre in which the coherence is less, sometimes to the extent that it is difficult to understand the writing. There might be the writing style of different writers, or there might be a particular genre. Okay, now as far as coherence is concerned, we are going to deal with it within three models. Okay, like we dealt with cohesion through cohesive devices, so we are going to deal with coherence through some of the models, right? Which are basically three. We'll try to complete all of them today, but let's see how far we can go. So the three models are coherent model thought, then there is coherent model other languages, then there is coherent model speech. Okay, so the first two texts are we're going to analyze them through coherent model thought. Now, what is this coherent model thought? Let me add few of your class fellows, and we'll continue. Okay, now this coherent model thought, I told you that there is a little deviation from the usual writing where the text follows strict coherence and cohesion, right? And such texts are easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to follow. Now, what is this coherent model thought is when the writer wants to show that a character is thinking, and he puts his thought um, in the form of writing. So he's following the coherent model of thought. Now, what happens when someone is thinking and writing, or the writer putting the character's thought process? The thoughts of a person are not coherent. Okay, the thoughts can be random. A person can think about one thing, and then he can think about other things. Okay, someone is saying something. Okay, I've added already. So um, so when a writer is writing through this model of thought, coherent model of thought, he's actually writing a different kind of a story. He's trying to depict a character's thought. The character thinks, and his thoughts are put to paper um, as they are, right? So human thoughts are usually random. They are not well organized or arranged. A person can think about one thing at one time, and then at the same time he's thinking about something else, right? So the text that we are going to solve through this coherent model of thought, both the characters are are about to sleep, and they are thinking about their past, present, and then they might go to the future. So they are thinking about several things together, right? So that is why we would see that, um, it would be difficult to follow the text in a single reading, and we need to find out the connections. Okay, what is connected to which thought, and what is the time period. Okay, we need to decipher whether the character is thinking about the past, or about the future or the present, right? So in novel writing, there is a specific genre for such text which has a loose coherence, and that is called a stream of consciousness. Okay, I don't know if you have read any of the novel that is based on the technique of stream of consciousness. um, there was a novel by James Joyce. I keep on giving its example in the class. So the story doesn't start from the beginning. Okay, the story may start from the middle, or sometimes the story can start from the end also. And then from the end, the writer tells the readers about the end of the story, and then he brings the readers to the middle and the beginning of the story. So what I want to say here is that uh, such writing are stylistically acceptable because they are following a certain genre. So whoever would adopt this technique of stream of consciousness, putting thoughts of a character to paper, he would be following, and we can justify it stylistically through the coherent model of thought. Okay, so I hope you have understood what this model is and what we are going to deal with in the tasks. Okay. Now, as I've told you that we are not going to leave coherence, cohesion behind. We will try to find out the cohesion as well as, coherence. Uh, Mazib is asking about 4.4 exercise. Mazib, no, we are not doing that. Okay. For cohesion, we are done with the second and third. Fourth and fifth, if you want to do, I'm not doing in the class. Okay. Perhaps, maybe, I don't know. Why did I choose not to do? But we are not doing it. We will do coherence today. Anyway, let's start with the task. Okay. So we already know that a text has two features as far as its texture is concerned. One is coherence and the other is cohesion. We are already done with cohesion, and today we are going to talk about coherence. And as we have already defined, coherence has logical links, whereas cohesion are the grammatical links. So we have done cohesion through cohesive devices. Okay. So when we talk about coherence, it arises out of common sense links, which are also called as the logical links. And these logical links are the links between the ideas. Okay. So when the ideas are logically linked, we say that the text is coherent, because a human mind follows something that is organized, that is logical, that comes within the common sense. Okay, so coherence has less to do with grammatical structures and textures and links, and more to do with the logical links between ideas, which are connected through common sense. Okay. So in some of the models, we would see that, for instance, in a model of other languages. You would see that when there are characters whose language is not English, they might not be speaking the correct English. That is, their conversation might not have cohesion, but we would be looking at coherence, right? That we can follow even the incorrect kind of a language, because coherence is there. There is a logical link between the ideas. Okay, so both cohesion and coherence are important when we talk about writing. But since we are dealing with it stylistically, right? So we would see how things become acceptable stylistically, which might not be acceptable when it comes to, uh, you know, when it comes to strict grammatical rules, maybe. Okay. So text gain coherence if we can recognize that they have a model which supplies structures and form. That is, they are deviated from the regular kind of writings. Okay, so because of these models that we are going to study right now, things become very much acceptable to us, and there are different genres which follow different rules of or different models of coherence. For example, this is diary is one of the genre, and then epistolary novel, which are based on letter writing. Okay, and then there can be a section of the novel which shows characters whose language is not English or might be from other nationalities, so they can mimic the form of another type of text or language, right? We would be doing it through the model of other languages. Okay, anyway, right now we are doing this coherent model thought, and we would be doing it through two text 6 and 7. Now what we are going to do is, we are already told that the two characters depicted, whose thoughts are depicted in these texts, they are about to fall asleep. Okay, so whatever is going through their mind, we're going to read about that. Secondly, we are going to look at how is the supposed structure of thought being used to structure them. Okay, so how different thoughts are arranged in order to make one text, right? So what we are going to notice here, the text consists of multiple thoughts. You can even count the thoughts, you can even write down the thoughts separately, because those are different thoughts. Okay, we'll try to make out the connection between the thoughts, but what is important here, that a text may consist of only thoughts or may depict the thought processes of a character. Okay, so we'll see how far they are logically linked, right? So we're going to talk about, are the elements linked by cohesion or coherence? So I told you that we are not going to leave cohesion behind. We're going to look for the cohesive devices even in these texts, but more importantly, we would try to find out coherence. Okay. Let me have few of your class fellows, then we continue. So he thought, we are reading text 6. She thought sleepily of her Wesleyan grandparents, gravely reading the Wesleyan Methodist Recorder, the shop at Babington, her father's discontent, his solitary fishing and reading, his discovery of music, science, classical music in the first novella edition, Faraday speaking to Faraday after lectures. Okay, so she starts with the grandparents, okay, what they used to do. Then she comes to her father, who was dissatisfied, and what he used to do, he used to read and he used to fish, and then his interests, okay, grandparents, then his father, then marriage, the new house. Okay, so we are on the third thought within the first few lines. Okay, now you keep counting the thoughts. Marriage, the new house, the red brick wall at the end of the garden where young peach trees were planted. Running up and down stairs and singing, both of them singing in the rooms and the gardens. She sometimes with her hair down, and then when visitors were expected, pinned in coils under a little cap and wearing a small hoop. The garden and lawns and shrubberies, and the long kitchen garden, and the summer house under the oaks beyond, and the pretty old Gabriel town on the river, and the woods all along the river valley, and the hills shining up out of the mist. Now, keep counting the thoughts, okay? She's describing the house, then she's describing the two characters, and then the activities, and then she gets back to the house. The snowman they both made in the winters, the birth of Sarah and the Eve, his studies and book buying, and after 5 years, her own disappointing birth as the third girl, and the coming of Harriet just over a year later, her mother's illness, money troubles, their 2 years at sea to retrieve, the disappearance of the sunlit red-walled garden, always in full summer sunshine with the sound of bees in it, or dark from windows. The narrowing of the house life down to the marine villa, with the sea creeping in, wading out through the green shallows, out and out till you were more than waist deep, shrimping, falling hours, hour after hour for weeks together, poking in the rock pools, watching the sun and the colors in the strange afternoon. Then the sudden large house at Bourne's with the drive winding to the door. Abrish, please mute yourself. Okay, guys. Now, what you're seeing here is you would see a lot of thoughts, right? Now, this girl, you can make out what. Okay, who's the character? Whose thoughts are being described? Yes, who is that character? Who is she? Quickly go to your chat and let me know what could you make out of this little passage. Many of you have found out that this is a girl, okay, whose thoughts are being described by the writer. Now, besides punctuation also helps you in deciphering and in getting to know that these are thoughts. What kind of punctuation? The three dots. Three dots tell you that, that's not complete, and then she moves to another. There isn't any full stop for the completion of the sentence, but there is another kind of punctuation which we rarely find in proper text, right? So you would see that there are so many thoughts. She thinks about the grandparents, who would read a Methodist recorder. Then she thinks of her father, okay, and then his activities. Then the marriage. Whose marriage? The marriage of her parents, and that wasn't a happy marriage. But she doesn't, after marriage, she doesn't say that it was not a happy marriage. She starts describing the house, okay, and then she talks about the visitors. She talks about the birth of her sibling, and she happens to be the third amongst them. And then they were basically four, right? And then she gets back to what her mother suffered in the marriage. Okay, her mother remained ill, there were money problems, and then she stops here. And then she starts describing the vicinity of her house, right? So where was the house? And it was perhaps near the sea. And then she keeps on talking about that. Okay, that they used to go to the sea, and they used to swim there, they used to enjoy there. Then she talks about what kind of sun was there, how were the afternoons, and all of that, right? So, um, in the first reading, it is perhaps difficult to even um, think about whose thoughts are put down here. Okay. Um, in the first reading, it is even difficult. Who are the characters? Whose marriage is being talked about? Whose house is it? The siblings, parents, and the grandparents. Do they belong to a single character? So, this passage is uh, long, and there are no paragraphs, right? And the thoughts are tried to be connected and disconnected through these three full stops. Okay, so when we see these full stops, three dots, we know that she's going to tell us about another thought. Okay, or the writer is going to tell us about another thought of the character, right? Now what we need to answer is, how is the supposed structure of thought being used to structure them? Now, the whole of this text is based on the thoughts, okay? And it's the thoughts themselves that structure them. It's a loose structure in the sense that there isn't much coherence, but it is stylistically justified because the writer has used punctuation so as to inform the readers that he does not aim to achieve any kind of coherence in this text, and he is he's actually experimenting with this thought model of coherence, and he justifies it through this. Okay, so the whole of this text is structured on the thoughts, right? Now, as far as this is concerned, this one, are the elements linked by cohesion or coherence? How does grammatical structure function? Now, the elements are, just a minute. The elements are linked through cohesion. Okay, there are cohesive devices. For example, we see pronouns. Okay, and we see the dialectic expressions also, and then we also we see that these are connected through cohesion, if not coherence. Okay, cohesion is strong because we can find that there are no grammatical problems. Okay, grammatically these are linked, right? For instance, See, everything, she thought sleepily, gravely reading, she thought, okay, we find the tense consistency in the tense, right? And we see that there are no grammatical issues. Grammatically, it's correct, only uh, the punctuation does not seem the regular one, okay, the usual one. We do not see the full stops and the commas, and it's long, but that does not affect the cohesion in any way. Okay, so cohesion has nothing to do with the ideas. Cohesion are the grammatical links, which we see that those are not loose here, right? We do not see any grammatical we do not call them mistakes in stylistics, but we do not see any grammatical deviation here. Okay, she starts with the past tense, she continues with it, and then uh, she's telling about the kids, and then she takes the name also within the same lines. And I think this is we find cohesion anyway, right? So other than that, in cohesion we talk about the devices, so we can talk about the phrases and the clauses, um, even the presence of the references, anaphora, basically, um, pronouns also. Okay, so this text is cohesive, right? But as far as coherence is concerned, it has a loose coherence because it is just, and this loose coherence can be justified through the thought model of coherence. Why do we say that there is a loose coherence? Because there are multiple ideas discussed. Okay, and in the second or the third reading, we are able to connect them, right? But still, um, they are the way they are arranged. Of course, this seems to be an autobiography, but it isn't a temporal arrangement. Okay, um, you know uh, in some way there is a coherence, but it is strictly speaking, the coherence isn't there because there is scattered ideas. Okay, we might say that there is a temporal arrangement. She talks about the grandparents, then parents, then about herself, but in between also she talks about people, and then places, and then somewhere else she is. So all of this, this is a fine piece of writing. We cannot say that this is not acceptable. This is acceptable because it belongs to the genre of stream of consciousness, and this can be justified. But as far as cohesion is concerned, we're quite sure that there are no grammatical problems, and we are not, you know uh, the cohesion does not hinder our understanding. Okay, so there are coordinating devices. You can see and many a time the sentence starts with and then there are subordinating clauses also. So there are cohesive devices, we can say, uh, ample cohesive devices there. But as far as cohesion is concerned, coherence is concerned, we need to justify it through some model stylistically. Otherwise, if we look at it um, for coherence, for regular writing, the normal writing, we can say that this text lacks coherence. But stylistically, we are very much, we can justify this through the model of thought. Because the writer intends to put down thoughts of a character, therefore he adopts this kind of writing stylistically. Okay, so this is autobiographical, and this is full of images. Okay, so as we read, we try, our mind tried to build some of the images, but these images are not in any of the sequence. Okay, she talks about people, she talks about places, she talks about herself, she's talking about different things. Okay, let's come to 7. And again, we are already told here that both the texts, in both the texts, the character is about to fall asleep. Now what I would like you to do is, we have 5 minutes to this session. So what you're going to do while we go for a very, very short break, because the session is going to expire in a while, I would like you to read text 7 and take out the different thoughts. Okay, she says, how do we come to know that it is autobiographical? It is autobiographical because, uh, it's a girl and she's talking about her family. First about her grandparents, then she talks about her parents. Okay, you do not find out this in the first reading, that she's talking about her parents, and is she talking about her marriage or the marriage of the parents. But later on you would see that she is describing her own life. Okay, um, we cannot really find out what is the age of this girl, and because she talks about the birth of her siblings. She happens to be the third child, and then there is another child, Harriet. So we do not know um, what is the age of this girl, and if she's talking about a distant kind of past, or an immediate past, or a few years back, but she is describing her own life. Okay, right? So that is how we get to know that it is autobiographical. Probably she's writing her own thoughts. Okay, and she's, of course, she's describing her own ways also, own life, her grandparents, parents, the place where she lived, the problems that were faced by her mother after marriage, and um, they're living in there. Okay, so guys, yes, this is what we are going to do in stylistic mazib. Um, this is completely acceptable as a part of literature, because we have different genres in literature, and this one that we are doing through this model of thought, it belongs to the genre of stream of consciousness. Okay, and there is a novel of James Joyce, I don't know if you have read it. It could have given you a better idea about this genre of stream of consciousness, where the story doesn't start from the beginning. Okay, it may start from the middle, and then the writer tries to tell us about the beginning of the story, or takes us to the end of the story. So it doesn't fall in the usual organized temporal arrangements. Okay, so here we end the first session. It is already going to expire. Okay, so I'm ending the meeting. It would expire in a while, I mean. So I'm ending the meeting. We'll meet after 5 minutes, but in the meanwhile, you are going to read and take out different thoughts in the 7th text. Okay.